The Blue Umbrella by Ruskin Bond. "Neelu! Neelu!" cried Binya. She scrambled barefoot over the rocks, ran over the short summer grass, up and over the brow of the hill, constantly calling Neelu, the name of the blue-grey cow. The other cow, White, was called Gori, meaning fair one. They were fond of wandering off on their own. Sometimes they came back and sometimes stayed away almost deliberately. If the cows didn't come home at the right time, Binya would be sent to fetch them. Sometimes her brother Biju, 2 years older than her, went with her. However, nowadays he was busy preparing for his exams and didn't have time to help. Binya liked being on her own. She belonged to the mountains. Dark forests and lonely hilltops held no terrors for her. It was only when she was in the market town, jostled by the crowds in the bazaar, that she felt rather nervous and lost. The town, 5 miles from the village, was a pleasure resort for tourists. Binya might be 10. She wasn't sure because no one in the village celebrated birthdays. Her mother told her she'd been born during a winter when it snowed heavily, and that was almost 10 years ago. 2 years later, her father had died, but his passing made no difference to their life. They had 3 tiny terraced fields on the side of the mountain. They grew some vegetables, not enough to sell in the town, but enough to live on. Binya was quite sturdy, fair, with pink cheeks, dark eyes, and her black hair tied in a pigtail. She wore pretty glass bangles on her wrists and a necklace of glass beads from which hung a leopard's claw. It was a lucky charm and Binya always wore it. She had stopped calling for Neelu. She had heard the cowbells tinkling and knew the cows hadn't gone far. Singing to herself, she walked over fallen pine needles into the forest glade. She heard voices, laughter, the clatter of plates and cups, and stepping through the trees, she came upon a party of picnickers. The women were dressed in bright saris. The men wore light summer shirts, and the children had pretty new clothes. Binya, standing in the shadows between the trees, went unnoticed. For some time, she watched the picnickers, admiring their clothes and gazing rather hungrily at the sight of the food. Then her gaze came to rest on a bright blue umbrella, which lay open on the grass beside its owner. Now, Binya had seen umbrellas before, but this was the first time she'd seen such a small, dainty, colorful umbrella. She fell in love with it. The umbrella was like a great blue flower that had sprung up on the dry brown hillside. She moved forward to get a better view. As she came out of the shadows, the picnickers saw her. "Hello, look who's here!" exclaimed the older of the 2 women. "A little village girl." "Isn't she pretty?" remarked the other. "But how torn and dirty her clothes are!" It didn't seem to bother them that Binya could hear and understand everything they said about her. "They're very poor in the hills," said one of the men. "Then let's give her something to eat." The older woman beckoned to Binya to come closer. Hesitantly, nervously, Binya approached her. Normally, she would have turned and fled, but the pretty blue umbrella had cast a spell over her, drawing her forward against her will. "What's that on her neck?" asked the younger woman. "A necklace of sorts." "It's a pendant. See, there's a claw hanging from it." "It's a tiger's claw," said the man beside her. "A lucky charm. These people wear them to keep away evil spirits." "Oh, I want one too, said the woman, who was obviously his wife. You can't get them in shops, said the man. Buy hers then. Give her 2 or 3 rupees. She's sure to need the money. The man, looking slightly embarrassed but anxious to please his young wife, produced a 2-rupee note and offered it to Binya, indicating that he wanted the pendant in exchange. Binya put her hand to the necklace and solemnly shook her head. The man then showed a 5-rupee note. But again, Binya shook her head. How silly she is! Exclaimed the young woman. But I'll try again, said the man. How much do you want? What can we give you? He waved his hand towards the picnic things scattered about on the grass. Without any hesitation, Binya pointed to the umbrella. My umbrella! Exclaimed the young woman. She wants my umbrella. What cheek! Well, you want her pendant, don't you? That's different. Is it? The man and his wife were beginning to quarrel with each other. But I want the pendant, cried the wife petulantly. Then, on an impulse, she picked up the umbrella and held it out to Binya. Here, take the umbrella. Binya removed her necklace and held it out to the young woman, who immediately placed it round her own neck. Binya took the umbrella and held it up. It didn't look so small. It was just the right size. She had forgotten about the picnickers who were busy examining the pendant. She turned the blue umbrella, looked through the bright blue silk at the pulsating sun, and then, keeping it open, disappeared into the forest glade.